Just a second. Okay, so welcome everybody to Research and Discovery Grand Rounds. This is our kickoff event for Research and Discovery Grand Rounds, and we're very excited with the program that we have to offer you today. This program will be led by Dr. Mario Castro and Dr. Steve Leader, who are our co-principal investigators for the Frontiers Clinical and Translational Science Institute at the University of Kansas Medical Center, but they'll clarify that this is a heck of a lot more than a KU endeavor. Dr. Castro is the Phillips and Lenora Phillips Professor of Medicine and Vice Chair of Clinical and Translational Research in the Department of Medicine and Chief of Pulmonary and Critical Care and Sleep Medicine at the University of Kansas. And Dr. Steve Leader is the Marion Merrill Dow Endowed Chair in Pediatric Precision Therapeutics, where he also leads Precision Therapeutics and is Associate Chair for Research in the Department of Pediatrics. Your conflict of interest, none of our speakers has a conflict of interest to disclose. Our second Research and Discovery Grand Rounds, which will be occurring on a monthly basis moving forward. So block out the fourth Thursday at noon of every month. And the next Research and Discovery Grand Rounds will feature Drs. Jonathan Mencken and Vincent Staggs talking about the Frontiers Biostatistics, Epidemiology, and Research Design Core. So I would now like to actually go ahead and turn it over to Drs. Leader and Castro. And we can, while we're getting up their slide set, I should announce that you will not be able to speak. We do have everybody muted during the course of this session, but please put your questions into the chat box, and we are hoping to leave plenty of time at the end of this session. And Dr. Leader and Dr. Castro may be monitoring that chat box even during the course of their joint presentation. So really want to be able to answer your questions. And so without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Drs. Leader and Castro.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Ellerbeck. And on behalf of Frontiers, our Clinical and Translational Science Institute here at the University of Kansas, I'd like to kick it off together with Dr. Leader. And we are going to really help you think about how you could potentially use the resources that are available in our Frontiers, our CTSI here at University of Kansas. Next slide. So first, let's talk a little bit about Frontiers. Frontiers is an institute, and because it's an institute, it has ability for us to partner with a number of other institutions. And so as listed here, we partner together with Children's Mercy, University of Missouri in Kansas City, the St. Luke's Health System, Kansas City University, and K-State University. And of course, at our other KU campuses, in particular, that we work with are Lawrence and Wichita. And what does Frontiers do? Well, our mission is to bring together investigators that have interest in clinical and translational science from diverse disciplines. And we do this across the entire state of Kansas and Western Missouri. So we have a large geographic area to cover. Ultimately, by bringing these investigators together and doing this work together and providing the infrastructure and resources for that, we want to improve the health of our public in these regions. Now, we are fortunate to be supported by a $25 million grant from the National Center for Advancing Translational Science at the NIH, or at the National Institutes of Health. And we call this NCATS, as we'll be referring to throughout the presentation. So we're going to talk about how does Frontiers give you access to new collaborators, data repositories, facilities, things like gene sequencing, if you may need that in your project. All these are resources that are available to you as a clinical and translational researcher under Frontiers. We want to make our discoveries translate to our patients faster. And that's truly been the mission of NCATS and the CTSA program. We recognize that there are a number of barriers sometimes to doing clinical and translational research. And so we want to surmount those barriers. And so it's always an evolving process. We have to learn how to best do this together. And so we appreciate feedback. As we present Frontiers today, certainly give us some notes in the chat of anything that you have encountered as a barrier for clinical and translational research. Any questions you have, certainly put those in the chat. Next slide. So as noted here, this is not a one-person job, this is a team effort. And I'm just thrilled as we move into this next cycle of Frontiers that we call 3.0, that I'll be joined with my colleague, Dr. Steve Leader, who will be presenting here shortly. And Steve is at Children's Mercy Hospital and has co-appointment here, and certainly has been really a pleasure to work with him because us working together allows us to really address the very diverse needs that our clinical and translational researchers have. So he shares responsibility together with me for the vision and the direction of Frontiers. And as Dr. Ellerbeck noted, he is the Marion Merrill Dell Endowed Chair for Pediatric Precision Therapeutics at Children's Mercy here in Kansas City. He's the Deputy Director of Children's Mercy Research Institute and the Associate Chair for Research in the Department of Pediatrics. And certainly his expertise and the variability and response to drugs in pediatric patients is a nice complement to what we provide here. I also have been really thrilled that I have our associate directors. Dr. William Brooks, as noted here, is our associate director. He leads the Frontiers pilot program, and he also provides support to the Institute for Advancing Medical Innovation. And he joined KU Medical Center in 2002 and is the director of Hoagland Biomedical Imaging Center here, which is on our campus here at KU. He's a leader in the field of magnetic resonance imaging, spectroscopy, and a wide range of neurologic and psychiatric disorders, with a focus on traumatic brain injury, neuropsychiatric syndromes associated with lupus, and post-traumatic stress disorder and stroke. And certainly, because Bill has been here longer, we call him our historian, and he really helps us understand the rich history we have here at KU. We're also thrilled in this past year to be joined by Dr. Kimberly Richter. Dr. Richter is the Associate Director, and she co-leads the Community Collaboration Core that we'll be talking about later on, and in particular, the team science function in that core. She helps us ensure the progress related to evaluation and continuous improvement, and really knows how to work with teams to help them really advance their clinical and translational science. And she's done this because of her expertise in the Department of Population Health here at KU as the director of You Can Quit, a tobacco treatment service here available for our patients. Certainly something near and dear to my heart as a pulmonologist. But she's also just been a wonderful public health leader within the state of Kansas to look at how we work together with our community. How do we look at system level interventions? But more importantly, she's just a wonderful mentor to our junior faculty, postdocs, and students. Next slide. Now, we're fortunate because we are part of a network of CTSAs. We were one of 60 CTSAs funded across the United States by the National Institutes of Health. And really the push here, the mission here is to help us get research off the ground. And we're going to talk about how we do that with the resources available through Frontiers. We want these studies to be completed quickly. We know that, they're all barriers like COVID right now that we're experiencing, but we know that there are resources available to help you overcome those barriers. And ultimately, we want to implement the findings to improve the health of the public. And certainly some of our interest in implementation science here is teaching us how to do this better. How do we get from what we know works and actually how to bridge that gap into implementing those into the public. Now, as the next slide shows, the CTSA program is really a collection of hubs that provide a number of key resources. And you can go ahead, next slide here. These key resources are really as outlined in these 4 general areas. And the idea here is that we can help accelerate discovery, we can accelerate innovation and clinical implementation to reach these goals. And each one of those are very different concepts, but are complementary, of course, to each other. So I won't go into a lot of details because Dr. Leader is going to talk about these cores later on. But as we think about this, it's really not one part of the piece of the pie that makes your project successful. It's potentially using all these resources. So I encourage you to certainly get to know Frontiers by using one of these resources that we're going to be talking about next. But think about, hey, how can I use Frontiers to move my project from, that just the methods, how could we start to think about, translating that to our patients? How can we think about using that in various community populations? And really, what are the tools that you need to do that? And this is the core mission that we have within Frontiers, is to help you as the individual resources know what those resources are, and really seek our additional help to get to where you need to be to get this to our patients to improve their health. Now, as we're going to be introducing, how do we get that help? Well, we have a group of navigators that will help us as we navigate all these different resources. And we'll talk about these navigators as we go through the course, but they're really there to advise you as a researcher on what are the available resources, how do I access those, and how could it potentially help me apply to my research, whether it be I need further education in a certain area, or I need some pilot funds. I need some funding to do some work that I'm very interested in. And these navigators are at no cost. They're really there as a resource that we provide to help you navigate all the various components that Dr. Leader will talk about next. So I'll next turn it over to Dr. Leader to take it from there.
Could we have the next slide, please? Yes, thank you, Dr. Castro. For those who are attending this presentation, really what we're going to do now is take a little bit of a deeper dive into the cores and the resources that are available to you as investigators, recognizing that this is really just a very, very superficial description of what Frontiers has to offer to you. But as we work through these, you'll find that one of the general features of our cores, and some of the cores have what we call functions, what you'll find is that there is a shared leadership model that mimics, for example, the relationship between Dr. Castro and myself as co-PIs. And this shared leadership model really helps to bridge institutions and even political and geographical boundaries when you consider the Missouri-Kansas state line. And it is our intent that this will create an environment that will permit more efficient access to this infrastructure and resources to accelerate clinical and translational research in the region. And so there are 7 cores that are required by the CTSA. We also have 2 optional cores that we'll discuss. And then, of course, there are the training opportunities. So if we could have the next slide, we'll get right into the administrative core, which we also call Frontiers Central. And so really, the key elements of the administrative core is to provide administration and coordination of all of the Frontiers operations. This includes financial activity and communications to stakeholders, to community partners, between and among researchers. This is all managed through Frontiers Central. And as Dr. Castro indicated, the navigators are really here to connect you as researchers to the resources that are available. Now, as a Clinical and Translational Science Institute, we also receive advice from multiple sources, one of which is the External Advisory Committee, which is made up of content experts from other CTSA hubs in the network. We also have local advisory committee that a group that we call our Stakeholder Advisory Council that allows us to maintain transparency with all of our efforts to promote clinical and translational research in the region. The other part of Frontier Central that I'm not going to get into too much detail is really an evaluation and continuous improvement team that not only evaluates our processes with the intent of improving them, but also provides resources to you as an investigator or your teams to improve your ability to conduct clinical and translational research. So if you don't know where to start, a good place to start is frontiers-info@kumc.edu. Otherwise, as we progress through the slides, I will provide contact information for navigators as well. What's not on this slide is a website. We're currently re-engineering our website so that will also provide information and contacts for future, for whatever you may need. Can we have the next slide, please? So the first core that we're going to present is the informatics core. And this is led by Drs. Mei Lu and Jeffrey Thompson at KUMC and Mark Hoffman at Children's Mercy. And the informatics core is intended to provide capability and expertise for investigators in the areas of software engineering, data warehousing, integrating research and recruitment using electronic health records, and data management. And these types of resources can be applied to study design and planning, making requests for clinical data, and for data analysis. And so some of the methods and systems that are available to you as researchers include ERIN, and this is an electronic health record and based investigation at KU Med, of course, a REDCap database management system. And for Frontiers 3.0, the plan is for, excuse me, informatics to focus on improving data quality across Frontiers partner institutions. And the plan to build a modern data ecosystem to promote or develop web services to promote research equity and point of care application of research, and also programs to expand informatics training, education, and research. And so they're listed at the bottom of the slide. You can see Sarani Chandaka as the informatics navigator, and she would be the primary point of contact for anybody seeking more information regarding informatics services. Could I have the next slide, please? The next core is community and collaboration. And this is led by Dr. Greiner and Dr. Richter. And this is one of the cores that has functions. So the community and collaboration core is divided into the community engagement function led by Dr. Greiner, and the collaboration and team science function led by Drs. Richter and Delwyn Catley at Children's Mercy. And Sharayla Haynes is a navigator as well. But what this core is designed to do is to look at collaboration in its broadest sense, and that is collaboration among partner institutions, a community of investigators, community of patient organizations, and of course, community groups themselves. And the types of services that you can access through this core would include team science consults. And there's a team science advisory board that assesses needs and social networks across Frontiers partner institutions, identifying strengths and gaps in team science skills and adapting evidence-based interventions to the need of individual institutions, researchers, and beyond. And so to be a little bit more specific, resources would include the Quality by Design studios. These can be used to engage community partners early in the planning process. And then we also have a group called the Multidisciplinary Advocates and Researchers Group to support investigators seeking to get started in community-based research at Frontiers partners. And then, of course, as a whole, the core and the functions will are capable of providing customized concierge services and support. Could I have the next slide, please? The next core is the Translational Endeavors core. And this core is designed to address the need for a diverse, well-trained workforce, which is, of course, a critical element in developing and conducting clinical and translational research. Translational Endeavors is also made up of two functions. There is the Frontiers Training Corps that is co-led by Dr. Ellerbeck and Dr. Bridget Jones at Children's Mercy. And the other function is the Pilot Awards operation that is led by Dr. Brooks and co-led by Dr. Nihar Nayak at UMKC. And you can see the Education Navigator and the Training Navigator and their email contact information at the bottom of the slide. The Frontiers Training Corps provides comprehensive competency-based career development programs for investigators. This includes the TL1 and KL2 Scholar Program that will be discussed a little bit later in the presentation. But there's also the Frontiers Scholars Club that is open to pretty much anyone. And at Children's Mercy, I've been encouraging our early career faculty to take advantage of the sessions and the ability to interact with people from multiple institutions at a similar stage of development, and they have found it to be particularly rewarding. So the Frontier Scholars Club is a good place to meet people like you and to hear about opportunities and acquire training. The Frontiers Training Corps also offers degree and certificate programs, mentorship opportunities, and one other aspect I won't go into any detail on is entrepreneurial roundtable. But the goal of the Frontiers Training Corps is really to assist investigators with establishing interdisciplinary research teams as well. So there might be a focus on individual growth and development, but also helping investigators to build truly functional teams. And the types of initiatives that contribute to this are the Research Professional Pathways Initiative, and then Advancing Science in Learning Health Systems, which is made up of the Quality and Value Innovation Consortium and the Center for Rural Health. And these, if you want to learn more about these activities, they are accessible through the Frontiers Training Corps. The pilot program is designed to stimulate novel clinical and translational research by providing funding, as Dr. Castro mentioned, and it will be described in a little bit more detail later as well. Could we have the next slide, please? Research methods is also a core that is made up of two functions. This slide addresses the first of those functions, the biostatistics, epidemiology, and research design, or BIRD core. And as Dr. Ellerbeck mentioned, the next one of these Discovery Grand Rounds will dive deeper into what BIRD can provide you as investigators. Suffice it to say that there are multiple resources that are available, and they are again accessed by the Biostats or BIRD Navigator, Megan Tremblay. And some of those resources include a biostatistician with the most appropriate expertise for your project. Recognizing, of course, that knowledge and resources of other BIRD faculty and staff are also available if needed. Something else that can be provided is statistical genomics and bioinformatics expertise, and this is becoming increasingly more important now that we are adding Frontiers genome core to the services and resources that are available to investigators. There are online and short course training opportunities, and there also can be advanced training leading to a certificate in biostatistical applications for those who apply for admission. And one of the new resources that's available is a voucher program. And this is based on recognition that faculty funding can cover the cost of initial consultations and sort of general project planning. But there are some projects that may require additional support. And for projects without funding, the BIRD voucher program is a fee-for-service budget that can be covered by vouchers. And we are still working at the process by which this will happen. But it's important to know that the vouchers can be used to cover costs at any BIRD unit. This is either the one at KU Med or also Children's Mercy. Could we have the next slide, please? The second function in research methods is the regulatory knowledge and support, or RKS. And the types of services that are available to you through RKS include advice and support with IRB requirements, and also navigating a single IRB process. And one of the things that we are developing for Frontiers 3.0 is this RAIN program, Research Acceleration and Improvement Network. And the goal here is to streamline and share best practices between and among Frontiers partners to enhance services and reduce investigator burden. And I think this is something that we can really look forward to reduce some of the hurdles of, for example, investigators at one institution conducting a research at another Frontiers partner institution. Could we have the next slide, please? Research, hub research capacity also has two functions. This slide describes the integrating special populations function led by Dr. Jill Peltzer and Dr. Scott Weir. We refer to this as ISP. And ISP is a resource that you would want to contact for assistance in engaging unique groups in research. And this would include patients with rare diseases, individuals from historically underrepresented groups in research, and individuals from under-resourced communities. So for example, rural-based investigations. And here indicated on the slide are some of the resources that are available. They include the Patient Community Partner Group, and the PCPG, as it's known, is available to meet with researchers and provide feedback on study proposals. And right now we are utilizing this for the pilot grants and KL2 applicants, where the applicants will present their research to the PCPG and get back some valuable feedback, some of which may be difficult to hear if you have not mastered the art of communicating your research to a lay audience. And I think I can safely say that investigators who have participated in this process have learned a great deal, and it's been a very valuable experience. Similarly, the Lifespan Research Consortium conducts research, provides consultations and design studios, including rapid reactor panels, to assist investigators with developing their proposals. And finally, the Rare Disease Research Consortium collaborates with the Institute for the Advancement of Medical Innovation, IAMI, and the Frontiers Genomics Core. And we'll talk just a little bit more about this a little bit later. Could we have the next slide? Patient clinical interactions. So patient clinical interactions, or PCI, provides resources and support to researchers in the form of state-of-the-art core resources such as imaging, biospecimen banking, and some training opportunities. And also it includes the clinical and translational science units, the CTSUs that Dr. Castro will present a little bit later. And there you have the navigators, Shelby Williams at Rainbow, and then within Frontiers Central, IT navigator Matt Grove, who can help with accessing the various resources available through PCI. Next slide, please. And finally, we come to network capacity. And really, the network capacity, which is led by Dr. Jeff Statlin at KU Med, Paula Nichols at UMKC, and Eric Rush at Children's Mercy, is really the connection between local researchers and resources available through the national CTSA network. Within Frontiers, network capacity interacts with informatics and some of the other cores to, in the case of informatics, to conduct de-identified searches of the EHR. Also, there is the Pioneers Recruitment Registry that is available to KUMC affiliated researchers for identifying potential study participants. But at the national level, network capacity is the connection with resources such as the Trial Innovation Network. And so what happens is that the TIN, it's called, the Trial Innovation Network may make hubs such as ours available or aware of clinical trials that are available. And we'll try to match up investigators locally who can participate in those clinical trials. But something that we haven't taken too much advantage of so far is the service that the Trial Innovation Network provides to individual investigators looking to develop a protocol for a clinical trial, for example. And this Trial Innovation Network is a collaborative national network that focuses on operational innovation, excellence, and collaboration. And it really is intended to leverage the expertise and resources of the CTSA program to investigators at all hubs. And so some of the resources that are available to investigators nationally are the Accrual to Clinical Trials Network National Query Tool that basically allows investigators to see what sites might have a patient base to serve as a valuable contributor to a clinical trial that one of our investigators might be designing. So rather than trying to guess which of the 60 sites might be the best fit, use of this tool might help narrow it down to a half a dozen or so. Next slide, we've got 2 more slides and then I'll hand it back over to Dr. Castro. IAMI, or the Institute for Advancing Medical Innovation, has been a part of the previous 2 cycles of Frontiers, and so investigators might be quite familiar with the objectives of IAMI. And basically, this is this is the core that helps translate research into disruptive medical innovations and advance the discoveries through the development process. It can be advancing new drug therapies, drug delivery platforms. But the point here is that if you have something that you want to pursue, you would contact the navigator, Carolyn Vivian, and seek a consult. And if your project is going to progress, there is a program manager that would be assigned and help you work your way through the process. So this could be a potentially really, really, really interesting opportunity for people who want to take their research at the bedside into along the translational path. Next slide, please. Finally, the Frontiers Genomics Core, or FGC, is, as I mentioned earlier, new for Frontiers 3.0. And this is also got 2 sites. There is the Pediatric Genomic Medicine Center at Children's Mercy, led by Dr. Tomi Pastanen. And then, of course, the genomic sequencing facility at KU Med, led by Peter Smith. And the intent of the Frontiers Genomic Core is to support translational genomic studies by Frontiers investigators. And this is across diseases, it's across age ranges, environments. And one of the applications that we're really pursuing now is in the context of rare diseases. And so it fits in with many of the ISP and many of the other cores that we've discussed. And so through contacting the navigators, and we'll have to provide you, we are just setting this up right now, and so we'll make available to you the names and the contact information. There will be a navigator at Children's Mercy, and there will be a navigator at KU Med. And between the two of them, they will direct you, anybody wishing to access these resources, to the most appropriate place to get your genomic services. So with that, I will hand it back to Dr. Castro to talk about funding, training, and the CTSUs.
Thank you, Dr. Leader. And Dr. Leader took the hard part. He went through all these cores, and it does seem a bit overwhelming. And so I just encourage you to think about accessing any of those navigators that Dr. Leaders mentioned. If you didn't catch their name or their email, you can always go to that website, kufrontiers.org. That one is currently active, and it does list all the navigators that we talked about today. And we are transitioning, as Dr. Leader mentioned, to a new website, which will be much more friendly to navigate. But these navigators are available there right now for you to access. So this next part, I really is one of the most important and nearest things to my heart, which is training and funding, of course. But the training part is really where it all begins. If you're new to clinical and translational research, this is the piece of information that you can take with you from today, hopefully that will stimulate you to at least to think about the opportunities there. We're going to first talk about the funding, though. So as part of our mission is really to accelerate research. We realize that sometimes you just need that key piece of data. You need some preliminary data to really be successful in getting that funding from a foundation or from the NIH or wherever you're thinking of applying to. And so we make available each year pilot awards that are $50,000 each. And this pilot awards are available to you as part of that. And in that process, we have a letter intent process where we take the top letters of intent and ask them to put in a full application for the pilot award. The idea here is that use those pilot funds to really leverage additional extramural funding from those pilot award fundings. Now, training. The programs that we have here are split into two different levels of programs. Really, there's the TL1 trainee program, which is available for pre-doctoral students as well as postdoctoral faculty. And this often is one of your first steps into research. And then there's the KL2 program, which is, again, for our junior investigators that are interested in clinical and translational research, but need that additional training. And as noted here, we've highlighted just a few of some of our success stories through the K and the T program. Dr. Jonathan Wanger, who's from Children's Mercy, one of our KL2 scholars, and also a pilot awardee. Dr. Nai Collado, who's here at KU, one of our KL2 scholars. Dr. Natasha Aduloju Jola from UMKC, one of our TL1 trainees, and Dr. Aaron Heller from Kansas City University, one of our TL1 trainees as well. And so across the spectrum of trainees, our idea here is that we need to help you establish those tools to advance your clinical and translational research. Next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that funding program, a little bit more detail so you're aware of kind of what to potentially apply for. First is the pilot award training program. This was named in honor of Lauren Aronson, the Frontiers Clinical and Translational Research Pilot Study Program. These provides pilot funds in the amount of $50,000 to support any investigator under Frontiers to initiate clinical and translational research. We do support research across the entire age spectrum, across the entire, across all the institutions that I mentioned at the very beginning. This is not, there is no restrictions from that standpoint. It can be done in any one of our partner institutions. And so this is the idea here is with the success of the pilot award program is really going to help you leverage for additional funding, kind of setting the stage for success in terms of obtaining that next grant or award program. The second pilot award program we have available is the Interinstitutional Pilot Award Program. Now, this is a collaboration across 6 CTSAs that are in our Midwest region, including here at KU. There's the University of New Mexico, Kentucky, Arkansas, Iowa, and Utah. And basically, the requirement for this Institutional Pilot Award is that you partner with at least 2 other institutions outside of our frontiers. So a total of at least 3 institutions need to participate, and each one contributes up to $25,000 for this pilot award. Now you could do it across all 6 if you're ambitious enough, but each one will contribute up to $25,000. This may be your first foray into a multi-institutional project. Lastly, there are some supplement fundings available. Keep an eye on that on the those email notices about additional funding. And then lastly, I want to mention the BIRD vouchers. So as Dr. Leader mentioned, under Research Method Core, there's the Biostatistics, Epidemiology Research Design core function. And this voucher basically allows you to have for free up to $5,000 worth of free consultation. So this consultation, there's a very easy application process for that. And I would encourage you to contact Megan Tremblay, who's our navigator for the BIRD function, to look into that. Because certainly what we find often when applications are not successful out externally, it's because they really haven't met with a biostatistician and planned that out ahead of time. So take advantage of this. This is something you can apply for and is freely available without having current grant funding. Next slide. So next, I'm going to talk about a little bit more detail about our education and training programs. As noted here, again, we have our early career development awards, the KL2 program, and then we also have our pre-doctoral and postdoctoral fellowship programs. And as you can imagine here, each one of these apply to different audiences. It's not just in medicine, it can be across any discipline. We encourage our colleagues in allied health professions, our colleagues in nursing, our colleagues in the pharmacy world to think about how could, and the list can go on, but encourage again, how do you apply clinical and translational research to your discipline? And we would love to help you in a training program in the TL1 or the KL2. In addition, what's available through these training programs is a Master's of Science in Clinical Research. Now, when I first started my career, I went ahead and worked a little bit extra and got my Master's in Public Health, and that really, in the long run, has paid off leaps and bounds to really solidify your skill set within clinical research. There are a number of other training programs that are available through Frontiers and opportunities as listed here. There are things like implementation science training opportunities, ethics training opportunities, and opportunities for research coordinators to also participate. As noted here, this is the Grand Round series that we're doing today. That's available, going to be throughout the year, and we'll have a program in that regard. But also we have the Frontier Scholar Program, and we have a study coordinator boot camp. Next slide. So next, I'd like to talk about a very exciting resource, and this is something that can really help you implement a clinical trial within your locale. And these are what we call our CTSUs, or Clinical and Translational Science Institutes. And this really provides that space that you need for participants to come and visit us and do some testing, whatever is required for your protocol. And we provide support to our investigators and our study teams so they can conduct their clinical research here on campus at one of our 4 different research CTSUs I'm going to talk about. So it can be on campus, as the next slide will show. And this is the CTSU Rainbow facility here on 2nd floor of Sudler building here at KU. And the CTSU Rainbow offers a variety of different resources. We have 5 exam rooms, 2 phlebotomy bays, infusion bays, as well as a dedicated research pulmonary function lab that you can utilize, including exercise physiology testing. And that's available here on campus. The other nice thing about the Rainbow U that makes it unique is that it has direct access to the medical center. So your participant can do their study visit there in the Rainbow CTSU, and then go over to the medical center campus and do their imaging study or do their other testing that is necessary as part of your protocol. Next slide. Now, this is complemented nicely by the CTSU at Fairway. So this is just 3 miles down the road, but it's in suburban Kansas. And it allows us then to sometimes attract patients that just don't want to come to the busy, hustling KU Medical Center campus, and they prefer to go to our campus over there in Fairway. And this is beautiful space. There are 9 exam rooms there for outpatient evaluations, cognitive testing rooms, phlebotomy bays, infusion bays. There are storage available for research supplies. There's a dedicated research pharmacy services that are available here at the Rainbow campus, but also at Fairway. There's a processing lab there. And then there's also a dedicated exercise physiology laboratory with a exercise physiologist on staff there. And so they do metabolic testing, they do cardiac stress testing. They can do things like pulse wave velocity testing, DEXA scans. All these things are available there at Fairway. Next slide. I'm also excited to mention that we have a wonderful clinical trials unit in Wichita at our KU campus there. And Wichita provides a number of resources. They have exam rooms, processing area, storage units to allow you to do clinical research there. And I took advantage of this recently in our COVID vaccine study and partnered with Dr. Tiffany Schwarzenegger-Schmidt there, who's showed in that picture, to roll out our vaccine study in Wichita. And again, this is a great idea that, could you potentially do your research here at KU and at Wichita? You could do it across 2 different locales. And of course, Wichita has access to a different patient population. Next slide. Now I'd like to introduce our 4th CTSU, which is the Pediatric Clinical Research Unit at Children's Mercy. And this is a beautiful unit made especially for children, where you can have both regular inpatient rooms and outpatient rooms where children can participate in research. I have a study currently I'm doing there for adolescents, 12 years and young adults. And so I'm able to do a study both here at the KU campus and at Children's Mercy campus using the PIC group. So it's a wonderful opportunity. Again, the NIH often challenges to think about how do we include pediatrics within our research studies, and you do have access to those resources there. And the wonderful thing is that they provide all the things that are appropriate for children. Age-appropriate examination space, the appropriate storage, in crash carts and all that for children, and really make it a very friendly environment for our children to participate in research. And again, this is available through Frontiers and certainly welcome its utilization. Next slide. The last item I'd like to mention is an exciting unit that we're starting to invest in, expand at Swope Health. And this is another community-based clinical research unit. And as noted here, we're starting off small in terms of the space, but we're wanting to build this. And the first phase, we have 5 traditional office space. And the exciting thing, it's married right next to Swope Health, which is a federally qualified health center in Kansas City, Missouri. You may not really realize this, but Swope Health sees over 52,000 patients each year, and 80% of their patient population is African American. This is a wonderful opportunity to really and to improve diversification of your research and to include in an appropriate fashion minorities to participate into clinical research. Again, we use this in our vaccine study, our COVID vaccine study, and we were really welcomed that opportunity because it allowed us to understand how the COVID vaccine would work in a minority population. And so again, think about taking advantage of this within your clinical research. And currently we have available over 2,000 square feet there, and we are continuing to expand as people show interest into using this as a site. Next slide. So I'd just like to end with Dr. Leader and stress again, I know we covered a lot of information, but it's really hopefully just getting your interest into perhaps tagging in with Frontiers and using one of our resources that Dr. Leader covered. Reach out to us in an email, visit our website, or give us a call. We have a wonderful coordinator at Frontiers Central, Jody Potts, who can help you kind of think, oh, well, where do I need to go? Who do I need to contact? Reach out to Jody and she'd be, delighted to direct you in the correct atmosphere. So I'd just like to pause there and we'll take some questions. Please put your questions in the chat box and we'll go from there. And I'll direct the first question to Steve. How can we access biostatistics support? Are there resources available for research? Are these resources available only for research funded by Frontiers? Dr. Leader.
Yeah, so any of the resources that we've described here are available to Frontiers researchers defined as somebody at one of the Frontiers institutions. So if anybody at KU Medical Center, anybody at Children's Mercy, UMKC, KCU, K-State, if you're a Frontiers partner, these resources are available to you. And to access them, you contact the navigator or Frontiers Central to get directed to the right place to get the information you need and the resources that you need. So everybody at a Frontiers institution is a Frontiers investigator.
And don't forget those bird vouchers, free vouchers for you. And Megan Tremblay is the navigator for our bird function in biostatistics. And I think also a question was posed about bioinformatics support. And I can speak to this. I know that one of my junior faculty is actually taking advantage of this through the voucher program and using one of our bioinformaticians here at KU to help him start his research and do the analysis. So certainly those skills are available. The research methods course, what they'll do is you do a brief survey and they figure out what your project needs. They'll consult with you to kind of dig into that a little bit deeper, and then they'll direct you to the appropriate biostatistician or epidemiologist to help you with your particular project.
And Dr. Richter has reminded us that this is not an unlimited resource, but we can try to provide the support that we can.
And I think it's a great segue too. I think the questions were primarily around some of the core functions. And I think that's one of the things we hope to explore more in research and discovery grand rounds, as we'll probably have each of our cores lead specific sessions, highlighting not only what they can offer, but some examples of some of the research that they're supporting. I think the issue here is that Frontiers doesn't necessarily provide unlimited resources in biostatistics for projects, but certainly initial consultations and then additional support through the bird vouchers. Am I catching that right, Dr. Leader?
Yes, that's correct.
And then Dr. Loskutova wanted to remind everybody that even though the KU Frontiers site is being revamped, it is still active, and you see it here at kufrontiers.org. I think she also wanted to remind people of the upcoming funding opportunities. She put it into the chat around the CORE's interinstitutional pilots with LOIs being accepted through February 14th, and put the link into that as well. And then Dr. Sosnoff asked if there's any training available for how to help researchers become better mentors.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I certainly, Dr. Ellebeck, I'll turn it over to you also as the lead in the KL2 program to talk about that. That's certainly an important concept of both the K and the T training program, is to help you become a better mentee and for you to help select a better mentor. Dr. Ellebeck?
Yes, and so I think it's a great question. I mean, there are lots of training programs that we can connect folks with on becoming a better mentor. The trouble that we've had is the most popular sought after mentors just don't have the time to participate in extended mentorship training programs, even though they would clearly benefit from it. We can actually do those connections. We also do work with all our trainees on development of a IDP, or an individualized development plan, which actually targets specific milestones that they're working on with their mentor. And then we'll actually focus on issues related to their mentorship plan, team science plans, and then work on targeted trainings to provide just-in-time skill sets to both the mentor and the mentee to take optimum advantage of that mentor-mentee relationship.
And, you know, we would also be open to anybody who has sort of innovative ideas on how to grow our mentors pool. For example, the concept of senior mentors and junior mentors, with a junior mentor being mentored to become a mentor, but perhaps having fewer obligations to maybe have a little bit more time to be available to mentees. This is something that we've been exploring now for about 5 years in our pediatric clinical pharmacology T32 training program. It's not formalized in any way, but it's certainly, I think we'd be willing to talk to anybody who's got some ideas of how we can do a better job of this.
And then I think just our last question of the day, Dr. Villock wanted to know more about qualifying for the BIRD vouchers.
Yeah, so I encourage you to reach out to Megan Trembling, so they will capture kind of the key information that they need to direct you in terms of the BIRD vouchers. We review that process through that application process and identify appropriate use of the BIRD vouchers in that regard. So certainly I would encourage people to use that process to help you identify colleagues here that can be supportive to you in your grant applications. I do want to give a shout out to Megan Ramsaswamy, who's not only co-leading with Dr. Ellebeck the KL2 program, but also recently received one of our CORE's institutional pilot awards to further her research in the women that participate that are in the criminal health system. And so this was a wonderful example of leveraging work that she had done here locally together with the other CTSAs in our hub, in our CORE's hub. It was exciting. It's now been shown at the national level for NCATS as a ideal model of really branching out to other CTSAs in our region to further your research.